Question for you. Do you have a favorite atheist? I know I sure do. In this brief video, you're going to get to meet him and hear how this brilliant non-believer can help add meaning to your life today. Enjoy. Welcome back to the Shed and Beam podcast, where we learn to see all things, see the whole wide world open up in the light of Christ. I'm your host, Thaddeus Williams, and today I'd like to take just a minute to introduce you to one of my all-time favorite atheists, the French existentialist Albert Camus. Albert Camus. I used to pronounce it Albert Camus until I had a French student years ago relentlessly mock me and straighten me out with Albert Camus. The reason that Camus ranks at the top of my list of atheists through history, and I used to teach a class called History of Atheism at a secular college, the reason he's one of my favorites is there's just an integrity and honesty, a willingness to bite the bullet and be consistent with the implications if indeed there is no God. And Camus sums this up when he said, when it comes to man's most basic questions of meaning and purpose, the universe is silent. So when we shout, "Why are we here?" at the cosmos, the answer is crickets. Now, many atheists through history, particularly during the Enlightenment period and the French Revolution, thought, oh, well, it's great, there's no God. Now all we need in place of religion with all of its superstition, all of its dogma, we can now replace religion with science. And the more science unpacks the mysteries of the universe, we can effectively usher in an age, a golden age, an age of meaning and progress and humanity and freedom and equality. And they had sort of this naive optimism that at the grave of God, we should, dance a jig instead of what Camus realized. If God is dead, we shouldn't throw a party. We should sing a funeral dirge. Because what Camus understood was that with the death of God comes the death of meaning, any objective or transcendent or ultimate meaning. With the death of God comes the death of beauty with a capital B, any true aesthetic values in the universe. With the death of God comes the death of morality and human rights and justice. And Camus honestly wrestles with this through his famous novels. Maybe you've heard of The Plague or The Stranger or The Myth of Sisyphus. He's one of the few atheists I found willing to honestly reckon with the implications of the non-existence of God. Well, one day in a church in Paris, at Notre Dame Cathedral to be exact, Albert Camus met a pastor from New York by the name of Howard Mumma. Howard Mumma was a Methodist pastor, and Camus asked Mumma if they could get together behind closed doors and meet to discuss the Bible. And Camus confessed to Mumma that being this world-renowned atheist, this international atheist celebrity, he had never really read the Bible. A pretty staggering admission. And so he had all kinds of Bible questions, and so Mumma agreed, and what commenced was a friendship that lasted several years between the New York pastor Howard Mumma and the Paris-based atheist existentialist Albert Camus. Now, those conversations have since been put together in a brilliant book. It won Book of the Year years ago, called Albert Camus and the Minister. Albert Camus and the Minister, it's written by Howard Mumma, and it recounts those conversations. And I just want to share with you briefly one of those moments between Camus and Mumma, where Camus says, "When I wrote The Myth of Sisyphus and my first novel, The Stranger, I tried to show that all human attempts to answer the questions of meaning are futile. In a word, our very existence is absurd. So what do? For me, the only response was to commit suicide, intellectual suicide or physical suicide. To lose one's life is only a little thing, but to lose the meaning of life, to see our reasoning disappear, is unbearable. It's impossible to live a life without meaning. And so what Camus describes here is, in the absence of God, again, we shout at the universe, why are we here? The answer is silence and indifference. And so the implication then is either intellectual suicide, where we essentially kill our brains. Our minds, as scientifically advanced as they may get, just get us more attuned to a universe that is utterly indifferent to human existence, that doesn't shed a tear at the Holocaust, a universe that doesn't celebrate at the abolition of slavery, a universe that could not give a rip whether it all imploded tomorrow. And so you can either commit intellectual suicide, says Camus, and shut down your brain and just go on pretending there's meaning in the meaninglessness, or the only other alternative for Camus was physical suicide, take a long walk off a short bridge. Now, in many ways, I appreciate Camus because I think he's something of an exemplar or a poster boy of our generation right now in 2025. Where I've seen nothing like it in my lifetime, at least, of people who have been consuming themselves and amusing themselves and scrolling themselves to death. And we're finally feeling our God-given craving for objective meaning and truth and beauty and justice. Those appetites, those soul-deep appetites are kicking in, and people are just starving for meaning and open to finding new meaning in ways that I think are pretty unprecedented. Now, in these conversations with Camus, there was a turning point where Camus, after reading the Bible and after Mama explaining to Camus some basic biblical insight, he drew the conclusion that the universe is silent, but the God who made the universe is not silent. Camus came to believe that God speaks. And so he requested of Mama to be baptized on one condition. And Camus' condition, because he was an international atheist celebrity, was, I want a private baptism. It's got to be behind closed doors. That way, no paparazzi would be jumping out of the bushes. No atheists would be there to protest. No Christians would be there to capitalize on the event. It would just be a behind closed door thing. And you might have picked up on the oxymoron of a private baptism, right? It's sort of a contradiction in terms. It's like saying jumbo shrimp or soft rock or crash landing, right? There's no such thing as a private baptism. Baptism is a sacrament of identifying yourself with the death and resurrection of Jesus, is in its very essence a public declaration of one's new identity in Christ. And so Mama kindly explained that to Camus, and Camus said he'd think about it. The prospect of doing a public baptism didn't need to be a huge media circus, but he would ponder doing a public baptism. Well, it came time for Camus and Mama to say goodbye after one of their meetings, and so at the airport, as Mama is giving his farewells to this international atheist celebrity, Camus turns and says to his friend Howard Mama, and I quote, "Pray for me, brother, that I can keep striving for the faith." Pray for me, brother, that I can keep striving for the faith. Not that I find the faith, but keep striving for it. Well, tragically, just a week or two later, Camus, after landing in Paris, died in a car crash. Now, it's a bittersweet story, but I'd like to think we're going to get to hang out with Albert Camus in the new heavens and the new earth. And I think his story is so powerful because it shows us that in this generation that is so desperately seeking meaning and finding that where they were supposed to get meaning from some grandiose political ideology, some version of totalitarianism, some version of gender ideology, finding meaning in name brands, finding meaning through scientific progress, all these things that promised a life worth living failed to deliver on their extravagant promises of meaning. But what does deliver is God in his word. That's what Camus came to realize. Hopefully that's what our generation is coming to realize, that when it comes to man's most basic questions, the universe is silent, but the God who made the universe is not silent. So I encourage you, if maybe you're feeling like you're running a little low on meaning today, like things feel senseless, like maybe things feel absurd. Yes, the universe is silent. Take that lesson from Camus. But also take the lesson that the God who made the universe is not silent. So I encourage you, wherever you're at, take a minute, dust off a Bible, crack it open, and hear your Maker speak. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Thaddeus Williams signing off from the Shed and Beam. If you appreciate this content, if you're getting anything out of it, if it brightens your day, would you do me a huge favor? Take 10 seconds, like, subscribe, so I can continue bringing you a wider open view of reality as you begin to see things more and more in the light of Christ. I'll catch you next time.